So when I went to work for the city of College Station in 2009, I met some pretty wonderful and talented people. And at the very top of that list was the city's neighborhood services coordinator, Barbara Moore, who somehow maintained the brightest disposition even when dealing with some pretty harsh sentiments coming at her from a few residents. So Barbara's talents were eventually spotted, and she was elevated to the city manager's office where her skills and advice and insight could be put to use in a broader way for citizens. Another wonderful and talented person I met was Cheletia Johnson, who isn't just the supervisor of Lincoln Recreation Center, but she grew up near that important site and has served countless children and adults through an infinite number of programs and events and important community outreach for more than 25 years. So these two women aren't just good at what they do and assets to the Aggieland community, but they are also Black voices whose lived experiences and perspectives and insights are really critical to ensuring the city of College Station sees and hears and advocates for all citizens, including those with Black and brown skin. So today I get to talk with Barbara and Cheletia, my old co-workers, about a special project that they are working on for the city of College Station and why it's important for you and me to know about. Welcome to Brazos Matters. I'm Jay Sokol. And Barbara and Cheletia, thank you for being here, friends.
Yes, thank you for inviting us. I feel real special with that introduction. So thank you.
That was a really wonderful introduction.
So Barbara, I'm going to start with you. Tell me what this project is called, if there's an official name for it, and the stories that you're aiming to tell.
Okay, so we're talking about Juneteenth activities within the city of College Station, done through the Lincoln Recreation Center and the city's Parks and Recreation Department. And we worked with Cheletia and looked at doing something a little different this year. And one of those things was maybe finding out a little bit more about some of the early Black families who made great contributions to the city of College Station that you may not know about. For instance, Sterling Street, Richard Street, Washington Chapel Church are all tied to significant Black families in this area that we felt like it would be important to tell their stories, to let people know when you drive down Sterling Street, it's not just the street across the street from Target, but it's tied to a family who made some significant contributions to this region. And so we're going to talk with some folks in each of those families, get their perspective on what their ancestors brought to College Station in the Bryan area, and just kind of chat with them on those contributions and let people know those names so that not only we will not forget them, but that we will in most cases just know who they are and gain some respect for what they've done for our community.
How far back are we talking about? How many generations or approximate years? I mean, what are we talking about?
Oh, I mean, I think the Washingtons and the Sterlings were at least, I'd say 3 or 4 generations back here. Yes. The Washingtons, at least the late 1800s. So those families made some significant contributions. Washington Chapel Church was named for Joshua Washington, who was sort of the patriarch of that family. They also had a school that was located near the College Station Cemetery and had a burial location site there for African Americans to be buried. So made some significant contributions. And shout out to Sherry Frisk, who's doing some great work on the College Station Cemeteries project. And she's also doing a lot of work with the Black section of the cemetery that was owned at one time by the Washington family.
And were these legacy families that you're talking about, did they own the properties that you're talking about, or did they just live in these areas? You know, how deep were those roots?
Oh, in most cases, they did own the properties where they were, which is pretty outstanding if you think about the times that they lived in, to be able to purchase and own property, definitely before civil rights and probably in some cases shortly after emancipation. So those are some pretty important feats for this region that was still considered the South at that time. So yeah, some very, very important work that they did.
Okay, so we're going to talk more about that. But Cheletia, I wanted to shift to you. You grew up in and work in at least one of the historical neighborhood epicenters, I think, of College Station's Black community.
Yes.
Why do we need to know about these legacy families and their contributions?
I guess so. It's not forgotten. You know, a lot of times with College Station, you know about the college and you know about the station, but it doesn't represent the African American families. They only show a certain population when they're talking about College Station, and so people need to know that other people made contributions to this great city, and so that information definitely needs to be shared.
I have to imagine that you growing up in that particular area and getting to work with these families, like you've heard some stories, right?
That's correct. I have.
What are some things that we need to know? Some things that you have gleaned just as a resident and a city employee. Like, what are some things that you think we need to know that are most interesting?
Well, I guess George Bush Drive, that used to be Jersey Drive, and then Fairview, like along that area, it used to be African American families that lived along that route. But then when the college started growing, the African American families were pushed back to where the Lincoln Center area is, and that it was families that African American families that owned, a washateria, a movie theater, a store, and so it was a thriving community, basically when the university started. It was some thriving families that lived along the route.
And it's a much more compressed area now.
It is. It is.
Am I right? Am I remembering correctly that there's some reference to that neighborhood now, the McCulloch area, is it 4 blocks? What was the name or nickname of that particular area? Am I making that up?
I don't know. Hollick. It was Hollick and McCullum, and then I don't know the other area that you are referencing.
Are there still descendants of some of those legacy families who live in that area?
Yes.
Which families?
Well, I know this, if you're talking about the Sterling and Richardson family, yes, they still live on Sterling Street. And then it's still family members that are part of the Richardson family that live now close to the Lincoln Center area. So there are still families here.
And for those who aren't familiar with the Lincoln Recreation Center and its history, can you give us a quick lesson on the significance of that facility? Yes,
the Lincoln Recreation Center used to be the African American school for the College Station School District from 1941 to 1965 until parts of the school burned down and then integration happened. Many graduating classes from Lincoln School, and some of those students are still around in this area. And when parts of the school burned down, there were a couple of gentlemen that were Lincoln former students that decided to say, hey, we need to do something with this before, the kids vandalize it and different things. And so they approached the school district and asked if they can turn it into a recreation center. And those were the community nights. And that's how it became a recreation center. They used their own funds and got funding from Alenco, and it turned into a recreation center. And then the city of College Station purchased the land from the ISD, and we've just been growing ever since.
Yeah, and really, if I'm correct in saying this, over the past several years, you've really tried to help the Lincoln Recreation Center evolve not just as a neighborhood gathering place, but as a community gathering place. What has that process been like?
Well, it's been challenging, but it's, sometimes you have to go through struggles to make progress. And so to me, it's always been a community center before it was a recreation center, because the Lincoln Center used to be where people will get information. If you needed help, they knew to come to the Lincoln Center. If a child was lost, they knew to come to the Lincoln Center. So it's always been that resource center. And so now we're trying to combine the two to where it's a recreation for leisure activities at affordable cost, and still be able to provide those social services that the community might need, or anyone that's from the Brazos Valley that might need those services.
And if somebody hasn't been there in a while, it has really you've added a lot. You've rehabbed a lot. Can you talk about some of the things that people may not know that you have there?
In 2018, we moved into our new building where it's a beautiful gymnasium with wood floors with 3 additional activity rooms and a very nice fitness room. And so people are like, oh, I didn't know y'all had this building. I say, yeah, it's a very nice facility. We also have a covered pavilion that's a double basketball court. We also have a splash pad and a brand new purple and gold playground. So it's a really great place, for families or for anyone that's just looking for affordable leisure services and leisure activities.
Barbara, let's talk more specifically again about the video project. Tell me about some of the people who you have talked to and interviewed and some of those stories that have come out from that.
Well, before we started the project for the families who were some of the founders, we had also started an oral history project. So that's been going for about a year now, where we've talked to people who were former students at Lincoln, who are still connected and started a Lincoln Former Students Association, people who still live in the area, a couple of the pastors, to just talk to them about what their experiences were living in College Station, things that they had heard from grandparents and parents. And so we've been doing that for about a year. And we've heard from Reverend A.C. Clark. We've heard from the famous Lucille Young, because if you know Lucille, you've met her once, you will never forget her. She is Miss Lincoln. And we've talked to several other people in that area that have kind of given us some really good historical data. It will be archived through the city's Historic Preservation Committee. The archivist works to translate and transcribe those oral history interviews so that they'll eventually be on Laserfish with everything else under the city's Project Hold. So that's a goal that we've been working towards over the last year, is getting those voices archived and put out there and preserved for years to come. And we've heard some great things about, we asked, questions like, what was Juneteenth like? And it sounded like it was an amazing event. And it was like a multi-week event where all of the churches and families just got together and they just shared how much community meant to them and how much community still means to them and why they want to preserve it. And so those interviews kind of led to, hey, let's kind of delve a little further into finding some of these families and talking about the ones who made some more significant contributions to College Station. So we are working on doing interviews with descendants from the Richardson family, the Sterling family, and the Washington family, all 3 of them, to add to what we've done already. And the plan is to show them during some of the Juneteenth celebrations that'll be at the Lincoln Recreation Center, and kind of give the community an opportunity to view and see some of the descendants and hear about the contributions of their ancestors to our community.
So through speaking with these descendants of College Station's legacy Black families, what were, and this is for you and Shalita, what were the sorts of, success stories and stories of struggle that you heard, whether they, again, were from generations ago or kind of or more current?
Well, one that stuck out to me was how they talked about having one bus for the Black kids that would start in Welborn and would eventually go all the way to Bryan. And so they talked about how they would often be late for school, but nobody would even really think anything of it because you had one bus. And so it basically traveled along Welborn from out in Welborn all the way down to parts of Bryan. And I thought, wow, that is quite a story.
And they weren't big roads like they are now.
No, they were not. Yeah. I've heard about some of the families who had their own movie theaters and grocery stores and some of the landmark places around town that you're like, I think one of them, the movie theater was near where CC Creations so that was a Black movie theater that was there. I would have never known that. No. And probably most residents wouldn't know that if we hadn't had these conversations with some of these people to talk about that, and the grocery stores and just sort of the community families. Like there were some families that had large families and they were just like the neighborhood hangout place, and how people grew up together and sort of were all raised together as families. It is just a beautiful depiction of days gone by that I think sometimes I wish we could still have life like that.
Yeah. So if you just tuned in, I'm Jay Sokol. You're listening to Brazos Matters, and my guests are College Station's assistant to the city manager, Barbara Moore, who oversees some special projects, and Lincoln Recreation Center supervisor, Cheletia Johnson. And they are both involved in a project that chronicles the history of College Station's legacy Black families who helped establish and grow the city. So what do you two think that the city's ongoing role needs to be related to gathering and preserving the history of College Station's Black community? When this project is done, what should the city be doing moving forward?
I think it would be good if we continue to move forward and find different takes on being able to chronicle their stories. From the oral history, where we just wanted to preserve the voices of many of our elders who were passing on. We had one lady she'll be 99 years old this year, and Cheletia was like, you have to get her story. And she was a absolute hoot. I would interview her 5 times again because she was so funny and so much vitality and has a memory that is like rock solid. That was amazing.
Because her memories predate significantly the city of College Station even being a city.
College Station will be 85 and she's 99. So she remembers what the station was like, what the college was like, long before we were incorporated. And so it's so wonderful to still have someone who's still with us, who can share with us. So we were very happy to be able to gather some of these stories from some of these elders and be able to preserve them. And in listening to them and talking to them, these other stories came out about how significant of work some of these other people did. And we felt like it was important to tell that story. Not to diminish any other stories that have been told, but in addition to. And so my hope is that we continue to preserve these stories, we continue to build on these stories, and we continue to find new ways to tell these stories. I think it's important for people to have a well-rounded view of history and a well-rounded view of who all played a part in helping to establish this community. So I hope that we continue with those efforts. They have been met with really, really good acceptance by the McCullough community and the African American community. People were very willing to tell their stories. And so that let me know that it was just a matter of asking and listening to their stories being told. And so I hope we continue to do that and even more.
Cheletia, do you have any thoughts about that?
No, I wholeheartedly agree with what Miss Barbara just said, just to continue reaching out, learning more about the culture of College Station, and then just asking some of these families about some of their history and just continue the project.
Has Texas A&M been able to provide any resources to this project, or if they haven't at this point, do you think maybe there's a place for that in the future?
We have not reached out to Texas A&M. We do know that there was a project done by a professor that was in the Urban Planning and Landscape Architecture Department, where she was looking at what's called Texas Freedom Colonies. And those were primarily areas and neighborhoods that were established after the emancipation, where they were like little pockets of places where African Americans had moved and had begun to sort of basically like what we were just discussing, have their own stores and have their own, blacksmiths and have their own movie theaters and things of that nature. So she's been chronicling those all around Texas, and she has some research on some in Bryan, and she has some research on McCullough. So we were thinking that, hopefully what we could provide them could be something that could be an addition to and help to bolster some of the work that they're doing. But yeah, that was the one project that we know that has some significance and some tie to what this project is about.
In all of our years of working together, and whenever we would try to find the right imagery and so forth to represent College Station's earliest days, I'm not sure I remember seeing photos of some of the places that you two are describing, the movie theaters, the
Yes.
Really thriving, built-out Black community. Am I right about that? And if I am, through this project, have you seen some imagery that you had never seen before that represents this community?
One thing that I have seen was Washington Chapel, when I think they had maybe I don't know if it was their 100th anniversary. They had a significant anniversary, and they produced a sort of an anniversary book. That was the first thing that I had scene where I actually saw some pictures and like, oh, this is that place. But other than that, no, I had never seen any of those places in photographs or anything like that at all.
Shalita, what about you?
No, I have not.
No.
No, it occurred to me as you were telling that particular story. So back to the project, when and how can people learn more about this project and even watch the video that is in production right now?
Yeah, so it will be, we're having a night where you can view it, June 15th at the Lincoln Center. The oral history interviews that we've conducted so far are being chronicled by the city's archivist, and she's going to do her best to transcribe and get them on the city's what's called Project Whole, historic online database. So you can go to cstx.gov/Project Whole, and you can find a treasure trove of College Station history. There are some folders on there specifically around Black history, but it's just some really cool history that's out there about College Station that I think people would really enjoy reading. So it's pretty important that we have those things archived there, and that is where eventually all of these things will be able to go, where people can access them for future years.
And I assume if for some reason folks miss the actual event and screening on June 15th, I'm sure it'll be run on the city's
absolutely
Channel 19 on
yes.
Optimum, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of information being pushed out by the city about that too. What are some additional next steps and things that people should know about this project?
Just look for it. Ask questions once you see the information. Give us a call, or you have more information you want to know about, or if it sparks other questions, that'd be good for us to know. That may be some of those future takes that we could do on it, and hopefully just provide some context and add some context to kind of what you already know about this great city.
Yeah, and if people are learning about this and think, well, I've got family who would love to be interviewed. It may not make it for this video necessarily, but can they still get in touch with you about this?
Yes, they can, and we will do the oral history interview with them just like we've done with the other families. And so we're also asking some of the families, like, if you have pictures from great grandma's family album that you don't mind sharing, or if you have mementos from your church's 100th anniversary, we love to be able to take photos of those too and add them to Project Hold as well.
Yeah, you don't need to keep the photos, but you need to be able to scan the photos.
Be able to scan them in and give them back to the families when we're done.
Shalita, while we still have just a few minutes left, do you want to highlight some things that are coming up for the Lincoln Recreation Center, whether it's Freedom Walk or any related events?
Yes, definitely to talk about the Juneteenth Freedom Walk, to where we start off at the Lincoln Center and walk to George Bush Library. It's a 2.68 mile walk, so it's not too bad. And we will do that on Friday, June 16th, starting at 9:00 a.m. This has been an ongoing collaboration since 2004, and so we are just thankful that we are able to walk this year to the library. And then after the walk, we will enjoy storytelling by Miss Davis, and she's going to bring storytelling to us, and then all of the participants will be able to have lunch there in the foyer of the library. And so we just excited that we can continue the tradition of walking to the library and celebrate Juneteenth, kick off the weekend with the walk.
Who can take part in this? Is the Freedom Walk, it's not specific to College Station necessarily. Like, all comers are welcome, right?
Yes, this walk is open to anyone that wants to do the walk. We invite everyone, especially other rec centers, other summer day camps, our parents, the community. Just come and walk with us, the 2.68 miles.
And do you have other events? You usually have a whole lot of things going on in addition to the Freedom Walk. Do you still have some extra things organized around this time?
Well, I know that during the documentary, we still want to have a celebration, and so we're going to add a few little things to the documentary. We will have watermelon, of course, and just, we'll have some vendors out there just to really celebrate Juneteenth. And then also on June 10th, for the Starlight Music Series is going to be a blues and zydeco festival out at Wolf Pen. And so people can go to the website to see who's the musical guest. And we always have a good time out at Wolf Pen. So, yes.
Now, if people listening to this have become curious enough about the Lincoln Recreation Center where they want to come check it out, can you tell them where it's located and how they are able to take a look around and just get a full idea of everything you have to offer?
Yes, we are located at the corner of Holloman and Eleanor. You'll see the playground and the splash pad before you see our facility. But if you want to come take a tour, ask questions, feel free to just drop by. We'll be there to help you. We have staff available, and we are always there to support and answer any questions that guests might have.
And again, this isn't just a place for kids.
No.
You are serving all ages, right?
I am.
Yeah.
We are a multi-generational facility to where we serve our sensational seniors 55 and older, where they can engage in recreational activities Monday through Friday from 9 to 1. And then our middle adults, we have activities for them as well, doing open gym, pickleball, and a variety of other activities. And definitely our next generation of youth between the ages of 6 to 15. We have an after-school program and gearing up for a fantastic summer program. So we are there to serve all ages.
Barbara, if anybody wants to know more about this particular project or ask you, hey, can we get on your calendar so we can contribute to the oral history or something like that, how do people find you?
Yeah, you can reach me by email at bmoore, BMOORE, at cstx.gov. Or you can reach me by phone at 764-6327. Just give me a call or send me an email, and we'll try to work on chronicling that history and getting it preserved.
Well, on behalf of the community, thank you, too, for doing everything that you normally do to serve the citizens of College Station and this community. And Barbara, for really taking a leadership role in making this happen, because this isn't just a legacy project for the families you're representing, but it's legacy for you too as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
And by the way, thank you, Barbara and Cheletia. It's so good to see both of you, and thank you for coming to spend some time with me.
Yes.
Thank you for having us.
Miss you both. Brazos Matters is a production of Aggieland's Public Radio, 90.9 KAMU FM, a member of Texas A&M University's Division of Marketing and Communications. Our show is engineered and edited by our program director, Matt Dittman. You can learn more about us at kamu.tamu.edu/radio. Thanks for listening.